The Flash without CGI would be absolutely horrendous. However, creating a movie on the computer screen doesn't come cheap. It costs millions to make a short 2 minutes VFX scene, let alone 2 whole episodes chock full of special effects. And that's exactly why we made a list of the most expensive scenes to film from The Flash. Let's dive right into it, shall we? Number 5. Barry running on water. When Barry had to dispose of a radioactive metagirl, he decided to run halfway across the ocean and then drop her in the water. Then the trick was to outrun the explosion and not get caught in the tidal wave. It looked cool on the show, but it was one hell of a task for the special effects crew. Since you don't see too many people walking or running on the surface of water, the creative team didn't know what this would actually look like. So they studied and examined a lot of really fast jet skis and boats to have a general picture of what this would look like. After adding the blur, the splashing, the lightning, the waves, and the explosion, everything made us feel like Barry was actually walking on water, when in fact, he didn't even get close to the ocean. But what did it cost the studio? We measured the scene and it was about 45 seconds long. As we said, CGI costs per minute vary widely, and a 1-minute clip could cost anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000. If we take the average of $75,000 and multiply it by 0.75, you'll get a scene that's $56,250. Number 4. The stadium scene. This scene was part of the first season, and it was one of the most demanding and most expensive scenes to film. Not only did they have to add special effects for 2 speedsters, they also had to create the special fighting sequences using CGI. Now, we can't really give you an exact number because the scene is fragmented, but we can safely assume that in the 2.5-minute scene, someone smashed that like button just like you should do if you haven't done so already. But no, kidding aside, there was around 30 seconds of special effects in this scene, especially the one-on-one fight scenes, so if we divide $75,000 by half, we would get about $37,500 for the CGI, and that's not even considering the fee for renting the stadium. Number 3. Creating Gorilla Grodd was hella expensive. Armin Kevorkian, the visual effects supervisor on The Flash, had the luxury of time when creating Gorilla Grodd. This 8-foot-tall, 800-pound gorilla was announced right after the crew made the pilot, which meant they could spend a lot of time designing the genius and powerful gorilla. Instead of using a lifelike gorilla suit, they opted in for creating a memorable CGI character that would be memorable. They first had to create the skeleton and Grodd's iconic bipedal movement, then came the muscles and finally the fur. This was one of the most difficult tasks because every hair on his body had to be drawn by hand. Because the creation of the giant gorilla was so time-consuming and difficult, a huge chunk of the show's $70 million budget was spent on Grodd. That's why the creators opted in for removing him from the show. On top of that, because Grodd was all CGI, the stars had a difficult time acting with an inanimate object on the set. Number 2. Flash and Reverse Flash go back in time. The Flash and Reverse Flash have had their battle throughout the season, but did you ever stop to think how expensive it would actually be to create these shots? Well, the battle scene between Barry and Ebert in the hero's childhood home was all CGI. When they were running across the city, instead of only the yellow lightning, they also had to add Thawne's red lightning. Then all of the fight scenes in the house, from the little droplets of water to Barry saving his younger self, everything was created on a computer screen. Now, let's count the seconds. We've just watched the scene and there's about 38 seconds of CGI. If we multiply that by $1,250, then we'll get a price tag of $47,500 for this scene. Number 1. Gorilla City. And the most expensive scene of all was the one where the showrunners had to make an entire city on the computer screen. It took them a bit of time and a lot of money, but Gorilla City has become one of the best 2 episodes in the series. Why? At the end of Season 2, the special effects studio Encore Post was told that the writers intend on bringing Gorilla Grodd back. As the special effects studio started working on sketches of Gorilla Grodd, they got further instructions as to where they wanted the story to go. The creators of the show wanted to recreate Gorilla City from the Flash comics, but instead of using a filming set and a guy in a gorilla suit, they opted in for the more sophisticated approach. Everything would be CGI. Even though it sounds a bit difficult, it was a challenge the show was up for. The writers said that they would want to introduce Gorilla City as this Amazonian civilizations that's centered around fighting and brute force. And like any other oppressive civilization, they would need a coliseum. In a city of stone, the creators made a real coliseum that was inspired by the one in Rome. This is where the Flash and Solovar fought to the death. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. That's when the VFX artists started working on Gorilla City. The entrance had those epic two-stone statues of gorillas guarding the entrance with spears in their hands. The whole city was made of stone, but they needed to add a little diversity to the gorillas. As we already said, creating a gorilla on the computer screen is really expensive. However, if they created only one model of a gorilla and simply copied it for every scene, that would have been really unprofessional. That's why they created 4 different gorillas and just copied each of the 4 hundreds of times. Next came the Gorilla Army. Now they were tasked with building the armor for Solovar's army, and again, they couldn't just make one model and copy it hundreds of times. That's why they made a few different models that they later used throughout the 2 episodes. Now, we talked a little bit about the fight scene, so here's the scoop. Because you can't have a giant gorilla fighting Grant Gustin in real life, they had to make one using CGI, but this meant that the Flash would also be computer-generated. This battle scene was one of the longest VFX sequences that you can ever find on TV. They created panoramic shots of the Coliseum, added computerized gorillas as the audience, and then let Solovar and Barry brawl it out till the end to save Earth from an alien invasion. Having so much computerized scenes only made things difficult for the actors. Oftentimes, they didn't have anyone opposite them that would allow for some interaction. That's why you see actors in a green room talking to a pole with a light bulb on top, or better yet, here you can see Grant Gustin talking to a man in stilts that pretended to be a gorilla. This served as a height reference for the actors. Because these 2 episodes had so much detail and were much longer than their usual CGI scenes, the price of making them went through the roof. We heard that they cost the studio 50% more than a usual episode of The Flash. Now that we know this, let's do some calculations. There's an estimated budget of around $3 million per episode, or $69 million for the first season comprising 23 episodes. Now, take that $3 million and add 50% to it, the total for one episode of Gorilla City would be a jaw-dropping $4.5 million. That's $9 million for the 2 episodes. No wonder they stopped filming these episodes.
After you die, your friends will follow you into the black.
On a related note, do you think CGI is better now, or was it better when Spielberg did it with Jurassic Park? You can tell us in the comment section below. If you'd like more videos like these, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of them. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.